Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, we're going to explore the question, is climate change really behind the searing temperatures for this summer? We're going to take a look at why weather history argues against that conclusion. A new challenge, this one raised by the Constitution to former President Donald Trump's race for the White House. We'll take a closer look and hear his response. Dennis Quaid stars in a new Christian film called The Hill, based on the true life story of a young man who had serious obstacles to overcome on his road to Major League Baseball. And it started out as a street outreach in Sacramento. Now it's turned into an evangelistic movement that's spreading to other major cities in America. All those stories and more ahead today in CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
Let's begin this half hour with a look at the heat waves hitting the U.S. and the world this year. The World Meteorological Organization saying this summer was the highest heat ever measured. And some are calling on President Biden to declare a climate emergency. But others argue weather history shows there were far worse weather events long ago. Dale Hurd is on the story.
This has been a summer of extreme heat weather coverage.
We begin with the extreme heat.
That extreme heat, relentless heat wave.
To the extreme heat.
An unbearable heat wave.
We're told 2023 is on track to be the hottest year on record, while 2/3 of Americans in a PBS Marist poll now say climate change is affecting the weather.
People are starting to realize that there is an effect.
This definitely feels like we're in that point of no return that people have talked about for a long time.
The UN Secretary General has called for immediate action on climate change.
Global warming has ended. The era of global boiling has arrived.
Weather history, however, tells a different story, that the worst weather events, including the hottest year, have all been in the past. The worst hurricane in history, the Great Hurricane of 1780, which killed over 20,000 people in the Caribbean. The worst wildfire in U.S. history, the Peshtigo, Wisconsin fire in 1871, which killed at least 1,500 people and burned over 1 million acres. The worst flood in world history was in 1931, the Yangtze River flood in China, which killed almost 4 million people. The worst flood in U.S. history was in 1889 in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. The deadliest tornado in recorded U.S. history was in 1925, the Tri-State Tornado, which struck Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana, killing some 700 people. And the hottest year was in 1936.
A heat wave in America, and hundreds of thousands leave New York.
In 1936, 21 states set their all-time temperature records.
The 1930s were extremely hot. 1936 is the hottest year on record in the United States, and probably throughout the Northern Hemisphere.
Some northern cities saw temperatures between 115 and 120 degrees. Many thousands died across the country, and the resulting Dust Bowl forced the migration of 3.5 million climate refugees out of the Great Plains and Midwest. There's little dispute the Earth has been warming incrementally since the extremely cold period known as Little Ice Age ended in 1850. But Weather Bell chief forecaster Joe Bastardi and other experts blamed this summer's sweltering temperatures on a huge amount of water vapor created by an intense underwater volcanic eruption in Tonga last year, 1,000 times more powerful than the nuclear bomb dropped on Hiroshima, and also by warming oceans.
Yeah, there's been an increase in what we call geothermal spreading since the early 1990s. And what it does is it develops a cumulative buildup of heat in the oceans, which then has to be released through the El Niños, which then puts all sorts of water vapor in the air, which then leads to the warming that you're seeing. It's all water vapor.
There have also been record cold temperatures this summer. But that weather news is ignored.
You know, it's a very complicated issue that the alarmists just want to boil down to, fossil fuel use is destroying the planet. The whole climate is a lot more complicated.
Summers in the U.S. are supposed to be hot, something even the Babylon Bee noticed. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
A group of more than 1,600 scientists from around the world, including 2 Nobel Prize winners, have signed a declaration saying there is no climate emergency. Just the News reports that document challenges the fears brought about by ongoing storyline of intent doom. Want to turn now to a new legal challenge to Donald Trump's campaign for the White House. A growing number of bipartisan voices believe the 14th Amendment may lay the groundwork to remove the former president from the 2024 ballot because of his role in the January 6th attack on Capitol Hill. CBN White House correspondent Abigail Robertson brings us that story.
These new challenges for Donald Trump include lawsuits emerging in a number of states, including New Hampshire, Arizona, and Michigan, that seek to keep the current GOP frontrunner off the 2024 ballots. The legal and constitutional claim being that Trump is ineligible for office after engaging in an insurrection against the United States.
Our country needs to have a different direction and a new leader.
Asa Hutchinson tells CBN News while he supported Trump twice before, he now believes Trump is ineligible to even run this time around.
Things changed after January 6th and leading up to it, whenever he refused to recognize that we ought to transfer power in a peaceful fashion under our democracy. And to me, this was not consistent with our Constitution.
He specifically points to Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which states an elected official cannot assume office if they have taken an oath to support the Constitution of the United States, that engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the U.S., or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof.
The voters in a very difficult position. They'll be voting in Iowa, New Hampshire, and even on Super Tuesday without knowing the outcome of the cases. And it sets it up where if it's not determined early, later on he could be the nominee and there could be a lawsuit that he's actually ineligible.
Democrats like Virginia Senator Tim Kaine agree this makes a strong case against Trump's holding office.
In my view, the attack on the Capitol that day was designed for a particular purpose at a particular moment, and that was to disrupt the peaceful transfer of power as is laid out in the Constitution. So I think there is a powerful argument to be made.
Two law professors from the Federalist Society, a key conservative legal group, studied this subject for more than a year. Their research concluded the Civil War-era amendment can still be enforced today, stating it disqualifies former President Donald Trump and potentially many others because of their participation in the attempted overthrow of the 2020 presidential election.
I think they're wrong for a number of reasons.
Hans von Spakovsky from the Heritage Foundation strongly disagrees.
Donald Trump has never been convicted. He's never even been charged with insurrection or rebellion. Trying to suddenly claim that he's guilty of insurrection or rebellion and those circumstances just doesn't work.
Spakovsky also believes upcoming lawsuits to keep Trump off state ballots will not work, citing prior unsuccessful efforts using Section 3 to disqualify other elected officials involved in January 6th, such as Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and Senator Ron Johnson.
We just had a federal court in Florida throw out a lawsuit that was attempting to do the same thing with Donald Trump, saying that voters don't have standing. They don't have the ability to even bring such a claim.
In response to claims he's ineligible to run, Trump says the 14th Amendment has no legal basis in regards to the upcoming 2024 election and calls this another trick used to steal another election. Reporting from the White House, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
I want to take a look now at some other stories in the news at this hour. According to the Capitol Hill physician, Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell's health episodes show no evidence of a stroke or seizure. The 81-year-old McConnell's recent freeze-ups have fueled concern and speculation about his ability to remain the GOP leader. He suffered a concussion earlier this year when he fell and hit his head at a dinner in Washington. Chinese nationals, sometimes pretending to be tourists, have gotten access to military bases and other sensitive locations in the United States up to 100 times in recent years. The Wall Street Journal reports American officials called the incidents a potential espionage threat. And the filming of the sequel to The Passion of the Christ is scheduled to begin in January. Journalist Jordan Rumi reporting Resurrection would focus on the 24 hours involving Jesus' passion and the events that occurred in the 3 days between his crucifixion and resurrection. And director Mel Gibson said the film will be more philosophical and poetic and not just a story. Coming up, one of the most important economic lifelines in the world is now facing serious restrictions because of a lack of rain. We're going to take you to the Panama Canal for that story when we come back.
Hi, I'm Terry Mewson, and I'm here to tell you how the CBN animated Bible series Superbook is transforming the lives of millions of children around the world. Your help is urgently needed because it's during these critical years of childhood that most people make their lifelong decision to follow Jesus.
Because of Superbook, I've come to know God.
You can be part of this critical mission with a gift of any amount. Go to cbn.com/share the gospel.
Serious problems for one of the most famous economic landmarks in the world. The Panama Canal is a lifeline for global trade, and now it's facing one of the most challenging periods due to a severe drought. Chuck Holton brings us that story from Panama.
It's a sight not often seen. Over 130 ships anchored off the coast of Panama, waiting their turn to transit the canal. This congestion is a result of a severe drought affecting Panama due to the El Niño weather cycle. The effect on shipping has been significant, leading to ship weight restrictions and fewer daily crossings. That means ships wait for 10 days or more, or are forced to offload weight to get through the canal. The Panama Canal administrator points out the challenge of trying to reduce the more than 50 million gallons of water the canal uses every day.
The fact is that water variability is different. The rainfall pattern is different, and now it is necessary to adjust to a reality that is not necessarily solved by a reservoir.
So consider this. About 40% of all the products that are produced in Asia and sold in the United States transit through the Panama Canal. And the canal essentially runs on rain. That's a good thing here in Panama because we get about 12 feet of it on average every year. Last year we had 19 feet of rain. Even yesterday we had about 6 inches. But the problem with the canal is that it doesn't have a way to store that excess water. And so when they get too much rain, they have to just release it out into the ocean. And that doesn't do any good, especially in a year like this when we're down about 50% in our annual rainfall totals. That creates a big bottleneck for shipping going through the canal, and it could create big problems later on for the global supply chain.
The depth, the severity of this crisis is really atypical. It is very high. So we think that between now and September 30th of next year, we have to operate with draft restrictions.
Panama's government worries continued dry conditions could be a disaster, since tolls from the canal make up more than 75% of its annual revenue. Morales maintains the canal will continue to be profitable, though.
International trade will always continue, so we are going to be here and produce many benefits for the country, from environmental protection to the transit of ships. We are going to be an example of economic success with social and environmental responsibility.
The height of the rainy season doesn't arrive until October, and if drought-like conditions continue, the U.S. may see furher disruptions to the supply chain. From Panama, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Still ahead, we're going to bring you a look at this Christian movie now in theaters with Dennis Quaid, based on the true story of a player who faced difficult obstacles on his road to the major league. We're going to hear from the director and that player right after this. There's a new film called The Hill. It is in theaters right now, and it's based on the real-life story of Rickey Hill, whose journey to Major League Baseball faced some serious limitations, including a struggle to walk. Well, Rickey joined us in Studio 5, along with the film's director.
You can't play baseball.
But I swing that bat. I ain't crippled no more.
How did you get connected to Rickey's story?
Well, my brother was in a hotel lobby on a business meeting, and he was sitting next to Rickey. He didn't know him from anything. And Rickey was on the phone describing how he was looking for a director to tell his life story, and that he had interviewed about 40 directors in LA and had not had one that he felt connected to. And he said, I have the perfect director for you, my brother.
Tie game, bottom of the ninth. At bat, Rickey Hill.
Oh my gosh! What did you do? Let's go!
When everybody said, please give it up, move on, you know, I said, well, I've got the financing raised 3 times. It's fallen through. I'm never going to quit. And I was very similar to Rickey in the sense that Rickey never was going to quit playing baseball. He would not listen to anybody. They said, you'll be in a wheelchair. You'll get bullied as a kid. You know, just don't think about being a baseball player. Do something else in your life. and he was determined to play no matter what.
Ricky, I've seen you out there swinging that stick, even when you're suffering pain. But you can't play baseball. You're gonna get ridiculed, and you're gonna wind up with an injury that you'll never get over.
Cut his cast off his broken leg, went through all these different tragedies, and then ended up trying out for the major leagues. And the end of the movie, he did a miracle that I can't tell you about now, but it's astounding what he actually achieved.
But all I want to do is play. When I swing that bat, I ain't crippled no more.
And gone, senior Rickey Hill.
So, Rickey, when did you know your story was a story that we needed to see?
Well, I actually really didn't know that all, other than my church where I go to. And my brother wrote a story for our family only.
Wow.
And for our family to read. And a man at our church got the story, read it, and he immediately took off to Hollywood with it.
Son, you might be better, but you are not healed.
Your bones are rapidly depleting. It'll be a miracle if you ever walk again.
It was just, then I knew, I felt really good about everything about it. What my brother wrote was just beautiful, and everything else was just beautiful and about the whole story.
People see this story and see you. What was it that made you keep pushing? Why did you not just sit down and give up?
There's no such thing as quit. I have a great relationship with heaven and my godly morals, and also let me know, you do not stop.
You seen this? Major league trials.
You're gonna paralyze him. I don't need you filling him full of false hope. He's my son.
You know, because your dad was a preacher, and here you are standing up to your preaching dad. And in fact, your entire family is standing up to your preaching dad and giving him godly principles about why he can't say no. What was that fight like? I mean, fighting a godly man with godly principles yourself?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. It was a pretty tough little road. But one thing about it was he always joyfully came in and gave me some great advice, always was spiritually fed and feeding me all the time. And I knew the direction because this guy gave it to me.
Ricky, baseball had to end eventually. Time to figure out what you're gonna do with the rest of your life.
They said he will never walk, and he ran. How many miracles do you need?
Now, do we see you in the film?
Yeah, unfortunately, you do.
I love it. Rickey, what's it like? What was it like on the set watching someone relive and replay your story?
Ups and downs. I had great moments, and I had a lot of moments I had to walk away.
Wow.
Because
it was an emotional ride for Rickey.
Because they acted so well. Everything was done so well that it was like I was living it all over again.
You're playing to join the elite.
I'm one of the best hitters you're ever going to see.
A bad leg could cost a team wins and money.
What do you think your dad would say about this?
He'd have the biggest smile on his face and saying that this is glory. This is absolutely glory. And he would say about if he saw it, that I didn't know that I actually developed and did all these things. But he did so much.
That's true.
Number one was souls.
All your hopes,
I cannot do this alone.
dreams,
It's your time, Rickey!
determination, and sacrifices have come down to this.
And The Hill is in theaters right now. For more uplifting entertainment news, be sure to join us for an all-new edition of Studio 5 tonight. Dr. Ian Smith joins us with a formula to burn fat. We're going to have your first look at a film based on a true story of music, love, and redemption. It's called Dreamin' Wild, and a nun investigating a crime only to find a startling surprise. It's also a new film. You can catch it on the CBN News Channel tonight at 8:30 Eastern. You can also watch it on the CBN News app or on YouTube. Coming up, it started as a street outreach in Sacramento, and now it's turned into an evangelistic movement spreading to other major cities. We're going to bring you that story when we come back. Stay with us. You're watching CBN NewsWatch.
Your news channel, your shows, the stories you care about. Anytime you want, anywhere you want. Download the CBN News app today.
What started as a street outreach in Sacramento, California, has turned into an evangelistic movement spreading to several cities. United Church, a ministry started to disciple people who came to Christ through street evangelism, birthed United Revival and the Jesus March. In 5 years, the ministry has hosted 125 prayer and worship events, commissioned 6,500 evangelists, and introduced thousands of people to Jesus. So far, multiple evangelistic Jesus marches have been held in Seattle, Sacramento, Santa Monica, and Dallas, with other cities also hosting the event. Time now for your Wednesday word, and today's word is new. Remember this: God has the power to make all things new. It matters not how much this tough time may seem in this moment. He can and He will make all things new. And don't you worry, nothing, no thing is ever wasted. Even the trying time you may be facing in this very moment, I want to remind you, God is in control, and He will indeed make all things new. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to remind you, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel. You can find them there at any time, as well as online. That address is cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. Feel free to email us. The address is newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you make this a wonderful Wednesday and join us right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye and God bless.